Okay, great. There we go. Thank you. And I want to welcome everyone to the Select Committee on the Future of Public Higher Education. It's Monday, April 5th, and I believe that today should be our last meeting as a Select Committee. And I will thank you all at the end, but I just want to acknowledge and thank the work of this group. We've been at this since September. And we've had regular meetings, and many of you have spent hours in between the meetings reading the reports. You know, it's not a short report, and just the number of comments and feedback and things that Brian and I have gotten since we sent the report out last week. It's been clearly people are paying attention and reading to it. So I am grateful. I also just want to acknowledge that this is a committee where the attendance for the committee has been amazing. So I know all of you are incredibly busy, and it's just been a delight working with you. And my only regret is that we never got to meet people in person, because there's many people here for whom I don't know. And I wish that we could have had one in-person meeting. Maybe we'll have to have a post-celebration. It would have to be in 2 or 3 months. But just to review the agenda, what I want to do is ask Brian to review, not point by point. I know that many of you have spent a lot of time with the red line version. So I'm going to ask him to sort of give some general context about that. And then ask him also, we'll have some discussion if people have additional comments. And then Brian will outline what he and I have come up with in terms of next steps, because we do need to get this entire report. We get to sign off on it and get it to the legislature by next week. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Brian and just simply ask him to sort of walk us through the report, the changes. But I also asked him not to go verbatim, because we don't need someone to read to us. We can all read. We've all spent time with it. So I think where we've made some changes in the content has been changed. That's what I'm going to ask him to talk about, not the wordsmithing. And I would also ask all of us, if you pick up comments or typos or you want to wordsmith, send the comments to Brian. I'm not a fan of group wordsmithing. So, and we will leave Brian to I think he's proven that he's quite skilled at taking our comments around typos and word changes and things, and has been able to find a way to get us to the place we want it to be. So Brian, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. And once again, I've forgotten my headphones. So if I fade in and out, somebody please alert me. I'm increasingly going back and forth between my office and home and leaving things in one or the other location. So I think one of the things that's been clear over the course of the last 7 months is we figured out how to change the way in which we've done some things. And so in keeping with Joyce's comments, the use of this redlining technique, I think, has made it far easier for folks to see changes over time. I will say that since the Select Committee last met, we've had, I believe, 2 steering group meetings, which have considered revisions to the document you all last saw. And so I'm hoping that I'm remembering the changes right. But basically, the major adjustments were the addition of metrics related to the expectation that the Vermont State College system would make progress and would be able to show progress in transformation based on some specific things that it would do. These were all new from the most recent version of the document that you saw. And in the course of the last month or so, the State College system and the legislature have gotten a little bit more specific about what some of those metrics look like for ensure. The idea here is that with the progress being made, the funding in subsequent years will be justified for further distribution. So that's one. Those changes were in the executive summary and descriptive. They were generally described and were specifically described in the implementation steps section. There was a recommendation that we made in the last version about requiring FAFSA completion. We did get some feedback from all of you, and we made some adjustments to that. And we'll probably make a few more adjustments in that section before all is said and done. But they'll be relatively minor. So what you're seeing is pretty close to what would likely go forward, pending any further feedback we get today. There were remaining pieces to clean up in terms of outline that needed to be turned into prose, and some additional content as well, particularly some themes that came up from the focus groups that Nebi was leading, that we needed to try to acknowledge in the document. And then we overhauled the data appendix, where we were sort of just storing some of the exhibits that we thought were relevant. We moved some of those pieces to the quantitative section. We added references to others. We deleted some of the exhibits that were duplicated elsewhere in the document, and we added a few that were that seemed germane, that from the very large collection of data that we've pulled together, just to try to be a little bit more comprehensive. And that, I think, accounts for all of the really substantive changes that we've seen. I'll just add that since we sent, or Candace sent you all the document, I think on Thursday last week, we have received a few additional changes from suggested by members of the committee. I thank you for those. I would echo Joyce in saying, if you do find any additional errors or grammatical mistakes or spelling or whatever, please forward them along. I will be grateful for that. But at any rate, the changes that we've received are, I think, very doable, and I appreciate them. They are not, I don't think, materially changing any of the content of the document. So I guess I would ask at this point for any other comments, thoughts, concerns about the changes that you've seen in this most recent document, because I think our plan is that with this being our last meeting, I will incorporate any additional changes for transparency, and I will send that out to the committee in red line form, and ask you very quickly to turn any more comments or questions around quickly, and then hopefully we can call this report fully baked and submit it next week.
And Brian, just to be clear, I think that, and I think I'm sort of clarifying, because I think this is what you intended. All the changes that we've received, that Brian received before noontime today, he has worked with people and is making the changes, and he will include those as well as anything else we receive additionally in the report that he's going to send out, hopefully in the next couple days, and then asking people to turn it around like in probably 48 hours if there's any additional changes, so that we can make sure it's ready to submit to the legislature and the governor's office by the deadline for next week.
That's right.
So I would say, do people, what are the, are there additional concerns that you want to raise with this group that we want to discuss? This is our last chance to sort of talk about anything that you haven't brought up, that you feel like, oh, I wish we could change this wording or whatever. I hope it's not substantive, because I feel like we have been through this and through this. I said to Brian earlier today, I think I almost have some parts of this memorized. So, but don't test me on that. But questions, concerns from people, from folks. Well, Brian, this is pretty good. Yeah. So anybody?
Scott raised his hand and
Oh.
disappeared from the scene, my picture at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a neat
Oh, there
trick,
he
isn't
is.
it?
No, he just moved to the upper left corner. Sorry.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
I wouldn't describe this as a concern, but this was something that I had sent in a note to Brian and to you, Joyce, about the marketing provisions that I just wanted to call out and see if other people had, any feelings. And that is that, in that section, and I don't know that we revised this, where we were talking about stakeholder feedback, the feedback leaned in very heavily into leveraging the brand kind of identity and equity of the individual campuses, which I understand, particularly from the advocate's perspective. I think that there's real potential power, at least from a student perspective, in the brand opportunity created by a unified institution. And my only, hesitation was that the only marketing comment or description that we've got within the report is one that leans really heavily into the individual identity of the existing campuses. And I would love for us to find some way to be able to recognize what I think is the power of the unified system as a potential marketing message to Vermont students.
And I would maybe ask, I think Sophie we've thought about this a lot, Scott, and I think that Sophie might want to respond, or Brian, but I think I would just say that I think that that's one of the things that we are talking about a lot right now within the VSC, and how best to approach it, because it is one institution. And it's important that the unified institution be marketed and branded in that way. But also, how do you carry forward the importance of a local brand like Castleton? How do you, and so I think I don't think there's an answer to that yet, but I think there's a tremendous awareness that there's an opportunity to create something really that could be very exciting for students and feel very new and very fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Balancing that with a brand that is well established and locally very much supported. So I think trying to marry that is a conversation that we've had a lot of conversation about. And I don't know, Sophie, if you want to pick up on that.
Yeah, I would just say, I think Dan also wanted to say something.
Oh, okay, Dan, I'm sorry.
He unmuted before I did. So
No, I was going to suggest that we ask the chancellor, because I'm not sure if this consultant group that's currently working on what the system will look like has a marketing slant to it at all. So I was going to defer to you, Sophie.
yeah, no, I think you're referring to our PK group that's working on the program array, and they're not really focused on the marketing piece. And as Joyce says, we've certainly been kicking this around. Our marketing and admissions folk have met several times, and we've been exploring different ways to move this forward. So I think as long as there's flexibility in the report, so that we can go where we need to go, that's in the best interests of the VSC and of the new combined entity. I think that's critical. I just wouldn't want us to be constrained in some way because of the language in the report. So as long as there's flexibility there that reflects, again, we recognize the value and the importance of preserving something of the history and the traditions of the individual campuses. And we will have to be creative in what we do around marketing. But I also hear what Scott says, that there could be real power in rebranding in terms of a unified single institution where we're providing a whole array of options to students across the state. So just as long as we're not constrained by the report and we have the ability to explore those ideas, I think that's what I would be looking for here.
Senator Bruce.
I just wanted to quickly second Scott's point. I think it's a good one. I haven't been so worried about this myself, because this has been dealt with in so many other states by, having State University of, let's say, New York, followed by the name of the campus that you're at, each known for different things and specializing in different things. So, you know, SUNY Plattsburgh, et cetera, or, you know, the Colorado system or any of those. So it seems to me that inevitably we'll have some sort of unified name followed maybe by the existing name of the campus. I don't want to prejudge things, but I've been assuming we would look for the best of both. That is keeping the identity, but also branding the unified entity. So doesn't seem to me the biggest marketing problem I ever saw.
Well, I think one of the areas that that we're trying to address, Scott, is to your point, is to try to thread that needle in the final adjustments that you'll see after a day or two after this meeting is over. I think I'm looking back at the the changes that we made. One of them was in the section around stakeholder engagement, that the branding and other issue to reflect the reality that we heard from stakeholders, that was a concern. We added something around that. It's that question of, you know, institutional identities to reflect that part of the feedback that we'd received from the stakeholder group, mindful that there's a need to sort of think this through and find that balance. In the recommendations and implementation step, we have been pretty generic about that topic in here, and I think we'll likely continue to do that, but we wanted to try to include an acknowledgement that there's a mixture of both the value of putting forward the student-centric and unified institution point of view through a marketing campaign that we won't be designing as a select committee, as well as the kind of important pieces of what the individual institutions have in terms of their brand. Trying to put language in there that says that there's a way to sort of be mindful of those things together as that marketing strategy gets developed.
No, I appreciate that. And in my hesitation, it had only been about making sure we had balance. Because as I think I shared, I think there's real power. Recognize the need for, you know, to preserve the best of what we currently have. But the part I'm excited about is the power for students of this unified model. And I didn't want anyone to walk away, who read the report, to walk away feeling as though, because all we reflected was the stakeholder piece, that we had somehow leaned into one side of this. So if the chancellor is comfortable, I'm fine.
Senator Baruth?
I did just want to ask Brian, Brian, when in my Senate caucus, when somebody presents, one of the understandings is that you queue up for people places where there would be problems in a bill that you're bringing forward, or where there would be controversy. So I didn't see anything that struck me as a substantive change or something that would later on seem larger than it first appeared. Is there anything in the last set of changes that you would flag for us?
Not any more than what we're already discussing. That there's as the institution becomes unified, there's a balance to be struck between what that institution has to offer and what it means, and what people have on this particular topic, what people have their own memories and recollections of it.
Yeah.
But no, there's nothing substantive.
I mean more broadly in the report, not just this topic, but all the changes.
No, nothing that we've done today, because any of the feedback that I've gotten came in over the weekend since Thursday. Nothing that I've come in has substantively changed anything in this report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I would also say, Senator Ruth, I think this has been the value of this process. I would say that the first report outlined the very significant work. The second report sort of fine-tuned and answered provided some additional report and some additional context. but didn't change really a lot of the substantive chunk of the first report. And I think the third one has done just even more of that. It's fine-tuned it, it's addressed some of the nuances and things, but I think in terms of the direction and the guardrails, I don't think there's been a lot of change from the very first report. I think, yes, there's a lot more context and a lot more support for why, but there hasn't been a directional change in, I don't know, Brian, I would ask you, I don't feel like there's been a directional change or substantive change from the very first one, the first report. There's been some nuances and some things that we've tweaked, but I don't think in terms of where we're headed has changed significantly. Would you agree, Brian?
I would agree. I mean, I think it's worth reflecting that NCHIMS has taken the perspective all along that this is your all's report. And so there were things in drafts that preceded the December report that we pulled back out in order to get something that everybody was okay with. And then we refined and re-entered those things in ways the select committee was comfortable with for that February report. And then the big differences between the February report and what you're seeing here really have to do with some additional refinements, some more clarity around the affordability conversation, the addition of metrics and expectations for progress in the transformational effort that are now linked to the conversations that are going on within the legislature. But no, this has basically been a scaffolding activity where that first report provided the foundation, and then each thing we've tried very hard, and I think we've been successful at not having to sort of revisit and redo something that, you know, in retrospect, that you all as members of the select committee had real serious concerns with having put forward, and we had to like back it off and start something different and do something differently. So this is very much in keeping with the way that the whole thing has evolved, I think.
Yeah, in that regard, I think that the things that have changed since February are the metrics and the implementation pieces of this report. And on the metrics, we've been very careful to work with the chancellor's office to make sure that this is not in conflict with the metrics that are being negotiated between the chancellor's office and some of the legislature. And we've also, made sure that it's in, the implementation steps are in sync with the board timelines and directions, so that what's here, I think, satisfies the alignment issues to the extent that there's anything new, it's in those areas. And I think we've paid attention to make sure that there's no conflicts.
Well, thank you both. And Brian, I just want to say, without your headphones, this is the first time your voice has really been clear in all the meetings.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't use them from now on.
All right. It's a good thing as we hopefully get out of this pandemic that I finally figured out my audio concerns.
There you go.
Let's start over.
Oh, Jeff, no. Oh, please. Yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I just said, yeah. Other topics or concerns from you folks? Okay, well, I do want to be respectful of people's time, and anytime we can give people back some time, I'm always happy to do that. But I wanted to just, we asked when Candace sent out the agenda or sent out the report to send things to people, and my goal, to ask people to send comments to Brian by noontime today. And he is going to be now taking all these comments, and we'll send out a report in the next 2 or 3 days, and then ask for a quick turnaround. And I will be sending a cover letter then with the report to the legislature, all members or to the House and Senate, Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, and then they will distribute it to legislators. Maybe JFO distributes it. All legislators will get a copy, and I will send this to the governor's office. And the cover letter will be that this has the support of the select committee. As we asked, if you had problems with it, I wanted to make sure you let us know. But since we haven't heard it, and the 4 people that are not on the call all said that they were in support of this report. So so the next steps, you'll get the report. I'll ask you to take one more look at it to make sure that we've captured all the changes and recommendations that people have made. And then our work is done unless the legislature decides that they want us to go to phase 2. But in terms of our work and our charge, it's been a pretty amazing process. We've done a lot of work. I have a lot of thank yous. I want to start by thanking Nebby. Michael Thomas and Candace have been incredibly generous with their time and with their support. The number of focus groups that Nebby did was pretty astounding. But more importantly, I have to just say, Candace has been just an amazing support to me. She has, as you all know, she's communicated regularly with this group, but she also has communicated a lot with Brian and I in keeping us straight. So Candace, I am incredibly grateful to you. Michael, you have a star in Candace. I think you know that, but
absolutely. All kudos to Candace.
I can't believe I forgot to attach the agenda for my very last communication.
You don't need to worry about that. It was only I had already gotten a copy, and then I thought, oh, and so then I asked Brian. I said, Brian, can't. So anyway, but it was one of those things. The second group I want to thank is the Joint Fiscal Office, working with Chrissy and Joyce Manchester has been great. Joyce is the one who negotiated the contract. I had never worked much with the Joint Fiscal Office before, and I have to say I have developed an incredible appreciation for the work they do. And for those of you that haven't had the opportunity, it's pretty amazing the amount of work that comes out of Joint Fiscal and bipartisan, really trying to help figure out a lot of stuff as the state wrestles with a number of different entities. So Joyce and Chrissy, thank you for your support.
I want to say thank you to the committee. It's been great to work with all of you, and I think we've come up with a really good report that will be useful, not only to the legislature, but to the state as a whole. So thank you all.
Thank you, Joyce. And then of course, I want to give a huge nod to NCHEMS, to Brian and Dennis and Sally. You've taken us from the beginning to the end. You've been incredibly patient. I just want to acknowledge Brian's availability. He has made himself available to so many different constituents in Vermont, a lot to the legislature, to a number of different groups, to the board. It's been way more than I think he thought he was going to. So I don't know if you thank COVID or Zoom, but we have tapped Brian for his expertise, and Vermont has been lucky. I will say that in the report, now if I ever need any data when I'm thinking about stuff, there's one place now that has so much data. It's this report. And then finally, I just want to thank all the committee members. I have not worked with many of you in the past, and I just have been very happy the way we've engaged. It's hard over Zoom, I recognize it, but you've all taken it seriously and provided us with a lot of feedback, and the level of engagement over Zoom with people you don't know has been impressive. So again, I want to thank you. And Devin, I want to give a real shout out to you as a student on this. Thank you for being here and for giving up your time to help us, because I think the student voice is incredibly important as we go forward. And I've just been really happy that, that you've been with us. So thank you so much. So with that, I think our work is done.
No.
Yes, Senator Bruce.
Our work is not done, Joyce. You yourself were left out. I can't tell you how much I appreciated you taking the helm on this. I also want to mention the steering committee, who was meeting double time and helping steer all of this in between our meetings. But in particular, I think you've just done a fantastic job. The fact that we had 0 comments about the final report, everybody just assuming universal approval. I've never been on a study committee where that's been the case. And I think that's a tribute to NGEMS, but also to your management. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Way to
Senator
go,
Bruce.
Joyce.
And well, it's the committee that we came together, but thank you, Senator Bruce. So with that, I will say, have a good rest of your day, and you get back a little bit of time. But you get a little time now, but you have one more assignment. I would ask everyone to really, once Brian sends us out, we just need to make sure that you've taken one last look at it to make sure everyone's comfortable with where we are.
And just to make sure that you understand that the amount of work you're going to have to do is not much, because the red line that you will see is only, we will accept all of the comments that are redlined in the current version, and the red line that you will see the next time are only the changes that have occurred in the last 48 hours or so.
That's right.
All right.